Maria W. Stewart was feminism before feminism. I was speaking about modern feminism. And yes, we automatically know that concepts are taken. What I said was, and it is a historical fact, modern feminism tricked Black people. It was a divide and conquer act. I'm not divorcing the root of a thing from the fruit of a thing. I'm staying on the message that modern feminism, which was backed by the CIA, came in to disrupt.
So a couple things were said. Number one, whenever we have this conversation about how many men are actually these harmful people who've unalived women, even though we know globally a woman is unalived every 10 minutes, right? And we know that it's a silent epidemic, and we know that it's a problem. I guess if we need to say how many men before we address it and consider it a majority of men, then I would say how many police officers need to unalive Black men before we consider it a problem? Because more Black women are unalived by their intimate partners than Black men are unalived by the police. And yet we still acknowledge that police brutality is a thing, because it's not the amount of people who do it, it's the amount of harm that's caused to the group that is already marginalized. So it does not need to be a majority. We should never ask for it to be a majority before we act. That's literally the antithesis of protection. It's as if you have a house, you see a roach, and you're like, well, it's not the majority. It's only one roach. No, you unalive, you kill the roach. When you see it, you kill it. That's it. You don't need to wait for it to be a majority. You don't need to wait for it to manifest. You don't need to wait for it to multiply before you decide, hey, let me act on this. Protection is proactive. What you have explained, Dave, is vengeance, which is reactive. One second. The harm has already occurred. Protection, the beginning of the word pro, it means before. So if we're sitting here talking about what I'm going to do if my kid is already harmed, it's already happened. So yes, I'm sure she's so happy that after she has been raped or essayed or whatever, that her dad's going to go take the life of the person and end up in jail his whole life. Now she's without her father and she's traumatized. Sure, she might be happy about that. But protection would mean let's address the concept of the threat before the threat happens. And us talking about it before it becomes a majority is how we would address that threat before that threat becomes a problem. The second thing, or it becomes the majority, right? The second thing I'm going to say is on the concept of feminism. Black women didn't get tricked by feminism. Maria Stewart, if you guys look her up, was one of the first Black women who were known to speak about feminism, and that was in 1806. Black women have been speaking on this for a long time. The only problem is, as with everything that you guys should know, being Black men, even when you guys had creations, what happened? It was stolen by white men, right? So don't you believe that the concept of feminism and women's rights could be stolen from Black women by white women? You don't think that's possible? We didn't get tricked. We always knew that women deserved rights. We always fought for those rights. We didn't get tricked by white women. They put a fancy word on it, and all of a sudden you think they invented it. That is what you call internalized white supremacy. You believe they're the creators and the authors of all of these things, and we're just being tricked by them and manipulated them, when Black women have been speaking on feminism for centuries, silently, being unheard, being unregarded.
If I may, because I want to be clear about two things. The first thing is, what I said was, I raise my daughters so they don't tolerate abuse. They don't see me beating on my wife. They don't see me doing things that would make that in their minds okay. My daughters don't and have not been beaten by me, because I knew as a father, if I do that, then I'm setting a tone to make it okay for another man to hit them when they go out into the world. I also have made it very clear when I raise my daughters that, these are certain things you don't tolerate. Ain't going to be a whole lot of raising voices, ain't going to be a whole lot of threats, all that stuff, to be preventative. Secondly, Maria W. Stewart was feminism before feminism. I was speaking about modern feminism. And yes, we automatically know that concepts are taken. What I said was, and it is a historical fact, modern feminism tricked Black people. It was a divide and conquer act. I'm not divorcing the root of a thing from the fruit of a thing. I'm staying on the message that modern feminism, which was backed by the CIA, came in to disrupt the anti-war movement, disrupt the Black liberation movement, disrupt civil rights, and break up families. Because prior to that, statistically, the most married, most successful, most skilled group in America when it came to being together were Black people, because we were the number one laborers, and they split us up. Not only that, the government benefited from the fact that if you have a very large group that is not working and all of a sudden you get them in the workforce, you get double the taxes. So yes, acknowledgement to Maria Stewart and how her concept got bastardized, but that's not what's on the table here. I was speaking specifically about what the CIA op did, because the Central Intelligence Agency, the spy wing of the federal government, decided to fund feminism, not because they wanted women to have rights, but they wanted to keep us fighting each other.
So just to confirm, instead of speaking about the overdrafting of Black men in the Vietnam WAR, I don't know if we could say that word on here, when they returned, not receiving any GI benefits that they were promised or were told they would have, right? So thus removing all benefits. When they came back, not receiving care for PTSD and drug addiction that they from trauma they experienced while they were deployed. We're not going to talk about the guns epidemic, the drug epidemic in the Black community. We're not going to bring up any of those things to say that is what has caused the Black families to fall apart. We're going to talk about feminism.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this topic was about feminism specifically.
But it's not the main cause, because the Black community was attacked in all facets of activity, right? Feminism would not be one of those things. Feminism is actually the thing that held the Black community together when those attacks happened. Because let me make something very clear. When those men returned and they were strung out, when the gun epidemic and drug epidemic happened, all of those things, right? If women couldn't have cards in their name, if women couldn't work, if women couldn't own homes or at least rent homes with leases in their names, we would have been SOL. We would have been SOL, because our men were being disproportionately drafted. They were consistently being targeted. Over criminalization is a thing. All of those other facets. And if Black women did not have the right to be able to own and lease apartments, it would have been detrimental. So explain to me how you're going to say this is the cause and not all of these other things. Also, in the 1960s, when Black people, or 1955 was the height of Black marriage, was also the height of Black poverty. So no, we were not the most successful. We were the most active. Yes, we were the most active. We were overrepresented in the workforce and underpaid. Women were getting paid $1 a day. The average during that era was $5,600 per household. $1 a day, if she worked 7 days a week, is $365 a year. No, these were not good times.
All right, let's get some other folks in there.
Real quick though, can I? JR, just I need to ask you this. Were we talking specific? I have two questions for you, JR. The first one is, were we specifically talking about feminism?
Oh, in that last question, yes.
In that last question. So I was addressing the last question. Am I correct so far?
Yes.
Cool. To the entire panel, did I say at any time that feminism as a CIA op was the only exclusive cause? No, I did not.
No.
But I do address all of those things that you talked about in the Real Black Agenda. So yeah, no, this was not a thing. And I'm just not big on goalposts moving. I know what happened after 9. That's not the issue. What I said was historically accurate and apropos to the actual question. I'm trying to stay on the actual question.
All right.